Mr. Petkov, thank you for joining us. This is the 5th election in 2 years. What will you do if you become prime minister to avoid the 6th one? Because the instability of Bulgaria could be also a risk for the rest of the European Union and the western flank of Europe in times of war.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's true. 5 elections is way too much for any democratic country to go through. But at the same time, what I'm seeing now on the 5th election is something different. Unity is starting to form around the idea of pro-European, strong Bulgaria in a way that was not happening in the previous 4. I believe that during this election we're going to have a big win. The pollsters are saying we're even with Gerb.
Yeah, but the polls are saying the opposite.
You know, every time the polls are... This is our 3rd election that we are appearing in.
Yeah.
The first time, the very first polls were giving us 8%. We got 26. The second election, they were giving us 15%. We got 20. Somehow, these few companies that are
But
creating
you
the polls...
couldn't rule the country either.
True.
True. So the coalition was not really...
But this time, joining with all these forces, I believe we're going to have a very strong leadership, more than the polls again estimate, which would allow us to put a relatively strong minority government. And why I say this with such confidence is that we believe that actually having a clear, transparent minority government is better than a murky coalition that nobody knows who controls what. And now the question is, why would the other parties support such a minority government? That's the big question. So I think there's some geopolitical elements that would affect their decision.
You mean the war?
The war. The war at one side. The second thing is actually both Europe and the US showed clearly, especially to the former Prime Minister Boyko Borisov. You know, it's unprecedented. He got his finance minister that was there for 8 years on the Magnitsky list.
But you are mentioning, I understand. But first of all, a minority government is better than a murky coalition, as you said. But at the same time, a minority government must negotiate with the oppositions or with parties that are not members of the coalition, step by step, any single reform, any single law, any single measure. Do you think that these important reforms, especially concerning justice, to fight against corruption, that Bulgaria has to implement, will be possible with a minority government?
Potentially, it could be possible with different parties having different reasons for that. I think, no matter what they talk on TV, I think most political parties realize the change is coming. Hopefully, it's on this election, but they realize the change is coming. So, most people, including, I believe, on the Gerb parties, they're starting to recognize that one way is to participate in the change by just waiting it out and some political force like ours to take over the whole power and just completely change it, or to be part of the change and monitor it on the process. So, for example, for the chief prosecutor, I think for somebody like Borisov, it's more dangerous if an aggressive party comes and just changes the chief prosecutor and uses the new chief prosecutor as a bat against Gerb. We're not saying this. We're not interested in having direct use of institution for a political purpose. We want to change the system to be working better. In this case, we're proposing to completely take down the institute of chief prosecutor.
Yeah, let me ask you one thing about it, because this is the core, the most important part, the main part of a judicial reform that has been required by the European Union, the prosecutor, in order to struggle against corruption. The prosecutor is a big problem, as you said, but at the same time, do you think, again, that with few numbers in the parliament you will be able to remove it, to remove this?
So that's a big question. So we'll do it in 2 steps. The first step is what's required by the recovery and resilience plan. By the way, this condition was put by our government. It was not a total requirement from the EU. But it says that the chief prosecutor should have a judicial oversight. There should be a judge picked at random that can actually investigate the chief prosecutor. That's unheard of up to now, because right now, as the chief prosecutor says, only God is above me. Now it will not be God above him only, it will be also a random judge that will monitor his steps.
Could you tell us why there is this direct link between this centralization of investigation with the chief prosecutor and the corruption system?
Okay, I'll give you an example, which would be interesting. And that was kind of confirmed by Magnitsky as well, in a way. So in the arrest of the finance minister during our government, there were certain allegations by a casino boss who said, I paid the finance minister 60 million in cash in his office every 2 weeks in order to get a tax shield on my business of 600 million, 560. So, by the way, that's a clear example of how corruption looks like. In order to steal 60 million, you hurt the country by 600 million. But anyway, then there were 2 witnesses as well, confirming this. Then there was bank statements showing this. And one of the witnesses even have said that he has seen the casino boss entering the ministry with cigars and euros. So very, very direct. And all of a sudden, the chief prosecutor says that there is not enough information to even start an investigation. Not to start an investigation and conclude. So the first thing that is very clear is that there is no current control on the internal feeling of a prosecutor, whether he should investigate or not. It's a internal trial in his own mind. And this we need to also put control of. But the bigger problem is that the chief prosecutor has control of every single prosecutor. And he can send them on the far borders of the country and says, next 4 years, go investigate there. So therefore, no normal prosecutor with normal incentive structure would like to start any investigation against any of the big corrupt scandals.
About corruption again, you were prime minister, and when you were prime minister, the former prime minister of Bulgaria and your current competitor, Mr. Boyko Borisov, was detained, if I'm not wrong.
On the same case.
But then, that's the reason why I asked. But then he was liberated with the reason that his detention was illegal. Why that? Is it related to this
I personally...
construction of a judiciary that you are criticizing, basically?
Yeah, I really believe that the current biggest problem on the judiciary is this one-person umbrella against the whole investigation process in Bulgaria. And I would understand if the investigation started, if the investigation had continued, if they didn't find the facts were good enough. I would understand all this. But to really even not ask for the guy that testifies with the money, to not be able to do a video call because the guy is in Dubai, and to ask him whether he can confirm his facts and to even start a real investigation, that obviously says that we have a huge problem with the chief prosecutor, and this problem needs to be resolved as soon as possible.
The other issue is that anyway, the country needs stability, political stability, as you said, to confront the, as you said, geopolitical situation. So it means, translated, it means that there is a war not far from here in Europe, and it's quite worrying. The position of Bulgaria is quite strategic from many point of view, on the Black Sea, on the southeastern flank of Europe. So the country needs stability and needs reforms.
Exactly.
If you will need also a strong majority, your competitor could be very close to you on Sunday night. So
how
would you be ready to create a grand coalition with Gerb and with Boyko Borisov in the name of these major challenges that must be taken on by Bulgaria?
So what we decided to do, so coalition is not possible per se, because we were created as a party, we were created as a movement, we were supported by our electoral support for one reason only, to change the model of Boyko Borisov. So if we decide to do something like that, which I personally would never, if you see me on the political scene, that would not be the case, it would mean that all of our voters would actually move away from us. So it's not only about our personal choice as leaders, it's also about the people created us as a political movement, because for this is the core purpose of our existence. So what we're trying to do, though, in order to have some positive outlook, this campaign, we didn't focus on the past, we focused on the future. And we said, listen, Schengen, Eurozone, Bulgarian agriculture is a priority because we need to decrease the food prices.
Would you be ready to put, say, a kind of ceiling for the prices as you did for the food prices you did on the energy?
No, what we're trying to do for the food prices is we want to get all the EU agricultural support, not to go to only the 200 big landowners in Bulgaria, but really to focus them on the small and medium farms. And that would give them a breathing room, and it would also allow for higher supply of local goods. So we'll play the market, we won't try to cap it. But the point is, so when we put all this very positive agenda, we look at Gerb's program. They also have many of those priorities. And we'll say to them, listen, we're putting a minority government with specifically this positive agenda going forward. We've had 5 elections. We have war next door. If you support this minority government will specifically work on these specific reforms. And for the judicial system, which is also another reform that we want, it's time for you to change the system so that when change comes, it comes with a new upgraded system versus just changing whose butt is on the top as the chief prosecutor. So we're gonna make a proposal that we take down completely the chief prosecutor and we start democratizing the prosecution office.
So you're ready to work with Boyko Borisov, basically?
Not in a coalition government. We're willing to show a positive program that has many coinciding politics and say we're going to move the country forward. In the parliament, where all these things need to be voted, not only with Borisov, with all the MPs, we're going to say, listen guys, we're not willing to compromise on our values so to start dealing with you because we know your past, when we have not forgotten. But for these specific goals to be achieved, vote with us, all of them. And we hope that we're going to get over 121 on these votes.
But you were ready to detain him some years ago and for the reform of a judiciary also, and now you are asking them to cooperate to a reform of a judiciary.
He has, where is his incentive to do it? For example, let's say tomorrow there is a big majority, but it's not. We're trying to change the system for the better. That's not the usual politics. The usual politics is trying to get a bat and hit your competition. So we're saying we don't want to change, because what would be to take a bat? To take a bat is to say, we don't like this guy, let me change it with this guy, and this guy to be controlled by us and to hit somebody else. We don't want this. We don't believe it's a fair system, and we don't care whose bat it is. We just don't want to have a bat. We want to have a free and fair judicial system, and that would allow Borisov to feel, I believe, more comfortable, because I personally feel that his biggest fear is that we want to change one versus the other. Now we're saying, let's democratize the prosecution office, let's have judicial oversight, let's have so that everybody feels that there is real fair treatment. And by the way, while he's doing this, he'll be in parliament if he decides to, and he has immunity.
Is this a message more for Boyko Borisov, a kind of offering a truce to him for the country, or to the European Union that is asking stability?
No, it's really offering to the Bulgarian people. I'm saying, no matter who you voted for, you have to demand from your parties, and not only Boris, we're having the socialists, we have DPS, everybody. Push your politicians that you have voted for, no matter how you see each party. We're going to put this positive agenda forward. Mm-hmm. This positive agenda, if your party is not willing to support, you should make sure that you penalize them as a political support, because people don't care who does these five strategies. All Bulgarians, if we go on the street, want it. Now the question is to put it very transparently, to put it very clearly. I prefer minority government because it will give us clear responsibility of the task. In other words, we take responsibility.
You mentioned the euro, for instance, but the euro required painful reforms for the population. Mm-hmm. And for instance, we have pensions in Bulgaria that are low. So the accession of Bulgaria to the euro, or the adoption of the euro, could be a big problem. And this is a strong argument also for the opposition, like the Socialist Party, the Nationalists, and so on and so forth. What do you think about it? So there could be a contradiction between the macroeconomic and the social issues.
So what are the value proposition for Schengen and Eurozone? And we put them together. So right now, Bulgarian exporters, small and medium businesses, have to wait 4 days on the Danube River to cross over. How can you compete with Western suppliers when you don't know when your truck would go over the Danube? So this will be eliminated, and we'll have free and easier trade for all of our businesses. The Eurozone, we are entering now into higher interest rate levels around the world. We see it in Europe, in the US. There is an immediate decrease in the interest rates of about 0.5% due to the risk adjustment. Bulgaria is paying about 1 billion leva, so 500 euros, in transaction costs in currency conversion. This money would be much better used in the business versus to pay to the banks. ECB oversight is very important. As you know, in Bulgaria, not too many years back, we had KTB default, which 4 billion got bankrupted. It would not have happened if we had ECB oversight. So we're saying to the people, your savings would be safer because you're going to have European institution oversight. Your interest rates will be lower. You won't be paying currency conversions. We're going to have more investments because no matter what, one less risk is there. And I really don't see the downside.
The Bulgarian society and the Bulgarian public opinion is extremely polarized between, say, pro-Russian sentiments and pro-Western sentiments, orientations. Why and what do you think to do to win over, say, the ones that feel closer to Russia, especially in this moment that is also strategic from a point of view of the security of the continent?
See, when we entered into power, the sentiment was over 60% of the people were Russian-loving people. That was it. We saw it in the polls. Today, because of what's happening with the war, it's only about 22, 25. Huge drop from high 60s to low 20s. And two things were related to this. First of all, people started to differentiate between Russia's history and current Putin's regime. Second, which was more important, a lot of the Bulgarians were afraid that we cannot survive without Russia. We thought, oh, we're fully gas dependent, we're fully oil dependent. So there was an embedded fear. With Gazprom, we showed that Bulgaria can diversify. We're not dependent on Gazprom. Now we're at 0%. So this fear went away. And I believe that this is probably one of the biggest progress that our society has made. I'm not saying pro-Russia, anti-Russia. I'm saying that there is no fear. No fear to take an independent position on important things. And what I also saw is in the Devout article that came out that said Bulgaria was one of the first countries to help Ukraine. people felt a sense of pride. A pride that this time Bulgaria was on the right side of history, was early on, and was recognized. So these are big mind shifts that I think are going...
The president of a republic doesn't share this opinion,
No.
I guess.
No.
Mr. Rumen Radev was not very happy about your decision to sell ammunitions and weaponry to Ukraine.
Very clearly here, and I think everybody understood what we did. Because it was early on in the war, what we did is we worked with our US, UK, Romanian and Polish partners. So Bulgaria actually sold to the US and the UK the weapons. So we didn't take the direct risk in the early on to Ukraine. They provided these weapons for free to the Ukrainians, and it was really a win-win. So the Ukrainians got key weapons early on, so we represent a very big part of them. The US was able to have a stable supplier in the UK for this, and Bulgaria's industry did really well at the same time. So that's, for example, a specific case of a win-win and being on the right side of history without taking a specific direct risk.
Yeah, but the president is still, Rumen Radev, is still against it.
Yeah, he's against it, and I think that his version of peace is not what the majority of Bulgarians believe. His version of peace is, let's say, if somebody attacks Bulgaria and takes the territory all the way to Varna and says, let's have peace, and more than that, let's not get any support from the EU so that we have peace. That's not peace. First, the attacking country should go back to where they started from, and then we can have negotiations. Otherwise, it's not peace. It's really authorizing occupation.
At the same time, a Russian company, Lukoil, still owns officially the most important oil refinery in the country, in Burgas. So there are still strong relationship with Russian and interest and economic interest.
True. What we did for this specific interest of Bulgaria, because we don't have a second refinery, and even though Black Sea is a sea, Bosphorus is a high risk situation because it can be stopped at any point, and because the Russian equipment was created to run on Russian oil, and there needs to be sizable shifts on the equipment in order to start working with Brent oil. We were able to talk with our EU partners and get 1.5 years of derogation to have this supply. So this is what the Bulgarians are seeing now. We're seeing that we had a government. Yes, it was only for 164 days, but when it was in the best interest of Bulgaria, we were able to communicate with our EU partners, and they gave us a break for 1.5 years. At the same time, our industry was working really hard without taking direct risks, but we were there for Ukraine to support. So I think the Bulgarians realized that Bulgaria can play a key role without taking unmeasured risks, but still be on the right side of history on all these elements.
A paradox, because anyway, there was the conditions that Lukoil refinery could refine Russian oil, not exported, but it was exported to Ukraine.
See, this is it's a real paradox that a Russian refinery, their final product would go to Ukraine. It was done through, I guess, intermediary companies, so everybody can save face.
Just last question, sorry to jump to another complete different issue, the relations with Turkey. Turkey is a key player in the region, is a partner anyway for Bulgaria, especially when it comes to the issue of immigration, the control of migrants and the refugees. What do you hope for Turkey if there are imminent election in the months of May? Would you like to go on cooperating with Erdogan, or are you ready to cooperate with someone new?
So what I see, and I think that was important political also shift in our foreign policy. each of our neighbors, with Greece, with Mr. Mitsotakis, with our Romanian friends, with North Macedonia, with Serbia, with Turkey, they realized Bulgaria could be a cooperative partner, not just a neighbor. We can build the infrastructure that was missing for years together. We can do the connectivity and we can become stronger without interfering in any of their political process.
Thank you very much.